My name is Karen. I'm 67 years old. Sure. I was once a firefighter's wife, mother of 2 boys. And today, I am a soft-spoken lady, one of those who go unnoticed, but who keep everything. Now, tell me something. Have you ever felt that something was wrong, even when everything seemed right? Well, that's exactly what happened to me that morning. The routine was in place. The smell of coffee, now. The noise of the school bus carrying my grandson up to Tajanigiyoga, one established Toby, and the good silence of a peaceful house. Aris, my daughter-in-law, was upstairs, said he was going to take a quick shower. No, not some quick shower. And I, as always, calmly arranged the kitchen. Wow, thinking about the lunch of the day, until the phone rang. Mine. It was my youngest son. It was my youngest son, Daniel. It is down. Pilot. Kneel down. He lives with his head in the clouds, literally, but he always finds time to call me. But that day, the tone of his voice was not the usual one. He said a sentence that chilled me all over. Nemo come to the digest? Mom, Ma, it is impossible. She's on my flight. He can't be there with you. How? If you stay with me until the end, you'll find out how a sentence said from the top of an airplane. The floor of an entire house collapsed, because that morning, time showed me that he sees everything, even what hides under my own roof. And it still was down. But before we dive into the heart of this story, I need you to know something. What is in front of our eyes is not always what it seems. That day, while the shower water was still dripping upstairs and I was collecting the breakfast dishes, the landline phone rang. It was Daniel, my youngest son, speaking from the departure lounge at JFK Airport in New York. His voice came a little hurriedly, but it carried a strange nervousness. And then he said, with a firmness that I have never seen, Mother, Aris is on my flight. I have her passport in my hand. I froze, because Aris, I was there at home. At least that's what I thought. Manly joking around. And before I could react, I heard footsteps coming down the stairs behind me. I didn't know it yet, but what started there was a game of mirrors. And I was in the middle, if you're feeling your heart racing along with mine. If you've ever been suspicious of what seemed obvious. So, stay here with me. Leave your like. Subscribe. Okay. Not for the video, but for me, because telling it, reliving it, wild and takes more courage than I thought I would have. And maybe, with your silent support on the other side, I can finish saying everything I've kept for so long. The morning it all began was nothing extraordinary. The sky in Phoenix was clear, light blue, as it usually is when the heat hasn't taken over the day. I had woken up early. As always, I like to feel the house before it wakes up completely. The silence of the rooms, the light coming in slowly through the cracks in the curtain. The smell of coffee starting to invade everything. It's my moment of peace, when I still feel like the owner of time. Noah, Dan, and Ginger, My grandson, Walters, came down sleepily, homebound, with Nessie hair and pajamas full of drawings. I sat with him at the table, gave him a kiss on the forehead, and served a plate of pancakes. He ate smiling, and before leaving for the bus stop, he hugged me tightly, the way only a small child knows how to give. I can still feel his little arms around my neck. Brian, my oldest son, had already left. He always leaves early, very organized with the schedules. He pulled his father, and Aris, well, Aris showed up soon after, wearing that white cotton blouse that I had ironed myself the night before. She had a towel on her shoulder and said, smiling, "Not I'll go upstairs for a quick shower before I start the day." Karen. She always called me by name, politely, but a certain distance. I answered with affection, without caring. She was an exemplary daughter-in-law in the eyes of all. She went upstairs and I went back to the kitchen, satisfied with the harmony of the morning. What did he secure on? Heinz, true, boss. The bread was almost ready in the oven, and the kettle was beginning to sizzle. I remember looking at the table and feeling that relief. Life had gotten back on track after widowhood. I took care of the house. The grandchild, Louts, the food, and received in return the warmth of the presence of a family nearby. It's strange to say it now, but that day I felt gratitude, a sweet peace. You know, one of those that we don't feel every day. And it was at that exact moment that the phone rang. I walked to the device, with the tea towel still in my hands. It was Daniel, my youngest. His voice was muffled by the background sound of the airport, but the tone was familiar, light, affectionate. Nay, he spoke of a connection in New York, commented that the next flight would be long. To Paris. I joked, "Take me in your suitcase." We laughed. And then he stopped. "Wait, mother? Tivian. Did you say Aris is there?" "Sure. You're in the shower." I'm the marquee. "Why?" His silence made me press the phone harder. "And so, I'm the touchdown." Then he said a phrase that chilled me to the bone. "Mom, just on my flight. I have her passport in my hand. I saw her getting on the aircraft just now." I was speechless. The kettle began to beep. I didn't hang up. Mounts. I didn't even answer. I only looked, instinctively, at the top of the stairs. And at that moment, I heard footsteps, slowly, smoothly, descending as if nothing had happened. It was her, Aris, with wet hair, the white blouse from before, and the same smile, as always. If you've ever been through something like this, where everything seemed right, but suddenly the ground disappeared beneath your feet, you understand what I felt at that moment. The mind tries to deny. The body doesn't know whether to run or freeze. Sometimes betrayal doesn't come with yelling. She comes with a smile, like pantoton, a familiar smell, a coffee served with kindness. If this feeling has already passed through your life, if at some point you also wondered, Is it me who is going crazy? Comments below with a "I've lived it" or a "It's true." Because I know I'm not the only one. And reading your story will help me tell mine until the end. Aris sat down at the table, asked if the bread was ready, took out his cell phone and started answering messages. I looked at her, trying to understand. The face was the same, the tone of voice similar. Wakai was but now something there no longer matched. It was as if I were looking at an old photograph, familiar but distant. I served the bread, responded politely, and disguised it as best I could. But inside, I am not on the count. Something had been broken, and that's when a question formed in my head, a question I could no longer ignore. If Eris was there with me, then who was the woman Daniel saw on the flight to Paris? Or even worse, what if that wasn't it really Eris? At that time, Daniel's voice seemed to come from far away, well, as if crossing a world I no longer knew. First, he sounded excited. He told me that he was going to pilot a flight to Paris that afternoon, talked about an important couple who would board, and commented on the cold in the city. Wow. I answered anything without paying attention. Wow. There was still the noise of the shower dripping in my head. And Aris there, so present, so close, and at the same time. Now, Leo tashed, Haniti Sikum, Nenestakaste Sane. So strange. But then his tone changed. It got slower, more restrained. Mother, he said. No, Arneon, Arsiotai, and voice. I need you to listen to me calmly. Oh, childs. I saw Eris here, on the finger, boarding. She was with a man, an elegant guy, about 50, in a dark blue suit. They laughed together. I didn't believe it. But when she handed over her passport, had her name, Aris Collins. I have the electronic passport in my hand now. I still tried to laugh, a nervous laugh. Well, this sounds too, kind of automatic. It must be someone similar. And son, Hagadityam, London Sa, Haptism Teokai. She's here at home. She just went up to the shower. But on the other side, he was silent. When the day you married, you captain, a and then came the phrase that dismantled everything. Mom, she's in first class. I saw her up close. I looked her in the eyes. It's her. It was at that moment that I felt a stab in my chest. And it wasn't just because of the fright. It was because, for a second, I believed him more than my own eyes. That woman who came down the stairs minutes later, who drank coffee and picked up her cell phone as if nothing had happened. Was that woman my daughter-in-law? Or was it someone impersonating her? I found myself observing details. The way she buttered her bread, the way she responded to messages, even the way she crossed her legs. Small things. Silly, perhaps, but everything seemed slightly out of place, like a photograph that someone tried to restore and got the color tone wrong. That call divided my life into two parts. Before I became suspicious, and after doubt came in, because after the doubt, my peace did not return, and I knew, deep down, that I needed to find out the truth. What I didn't know yet, that's where this truth was going to take me, because what Daniel saw in that airport, it was just the beginning, and the worst was yet to come. She went down slowly, wild how, step by step, Lila, her hair still damp and her white blouse slightly rumpled. It was Eris, or at least seemed. Well, now, she smiled when she saw me standing there, in the middle of the kitchen, how, holding the tea towel so tightly that my hands were sweating. I forgot to put a towel in the bathroom. Karen, can you bring me one later? The voice was hers, but it wasn't. No, there was something there. A pause between words, a certain care in the way he speaks, as if she was trying to remember how she always spoke to me. I looked into her eyes, and even trying to look natural, I saw that she looked away too quickly. That she never did. Aris always looked at me firmly, even when he wanted to contradict me. That gave me goosebumps. I nodded my head and walked over to the stove. The kettle still sizzled, as if nothing had happened. I prepared the tea as I always did, and left a cup on the table. She sat down, picked up her phone, started typing, and for a few minutes, everything seemed normal again. But now, I was paying attention to everything, and what was once invisible began to show itself. When she stirred the tea, she used her left hand. Aries was right-handed. No, it always has been. No, I saw her write notes, draw with Noah, use the spoon, always with the right. That could not be a mistake, or was it? I tried not to overthink it, but the doubt had already taken root inside me. She said something about having an online meeting that day, and went upstairs again, saying she needed to change. I remained in the kitchen, motionless, trying to pick up the pieces of my certainty. That morning, for the first time, I felt that my home was no longer mine alone. It was as if a shadow had entered with the light, as if someone was playing with my memory, testing me, and the worst was that no one but me seemed to notice. I picked up a family photo that was stuck in the fridge, one from last Christmas dinner. Aris was sitting next to Brian, with Noah on his lap, and I behind them, smiling. Her smile in that photo was wide, spontaneous, different from the one I saw today. Forced, mechanical, calm, the kind of smile we learn when we need to deceive someone. But what hurt me most was not the possibility that I was being deceived. It was the feeling of being alone in this. Because who would believe me? A lady of almost 70, widowed, living at a slow pace, always at the disposal of her family. Who would listen to this suspicion that seemed taken from a movie? I myself was ashamed of my thoughts. I tried to distract myself with the day's tasks, washed the dishes, folded clothes, organized, Noah's toys. But everything I did came with a hidden question behind it. Mind, what if she is not who she says she is? What if Daniel is right? And if that woman who sits at my table, isn't it Ari's? In that silence, I began to observe. But without demonstrating, I have learned over the years that sometimes silence is the only weapon we have left. And it was in the silence that I noticed one more thing. The way she cut the vegetables at night. Aris always did it quickly, almost in a hurry, as if he already had practice. But now, this woman hesitated. Now, I'm unemployed, holding the knife in a strange way, as if copying the movement of others. And then she smiled at me and said, Karen, today I thought about making salmon. You like it, right? Aris never liked fish, nor the smell of fish. We've had this conversation dozens of times. She said that her husband even tried to insist, but that she hated it. I just smiled and replied, I love it, man, calm. Then I went up to my room and locked myself. Why? I sat on the edge of the bed, my heart pounding. I knew I wasn't crazy, but if it wasn't, what was going on? And how was it possible for two truths to coexist like this? One inside the other, without exploding? I decided that that night I would not sleep peacefully. I needed to look again, take a closer look, because the woman who cut vegetables in my kitchen, it could have a face, but she no longer had her soul. And I was about to find out why. That night, I sat alone in my room, with an old brown notebook that was stored in the second drawer of the dresser, along with old documents and letters. It was a notebook that I used to write down recipes, addresses of friends who have already left, house bills, mailed, but now, it was going to be used for something else. I wrote on the first line, differences, and I started. I started, day, hour, there, on the section. What I noticed, I did it like a seamstress who finds the crooked stitches in an embroidery that seemed perfect. Small things, which at first seemed silly, but that together, formed a knot that was difficult to ignore. I noted that at breakfast she used her left hand to hold the mug. Eris was right-handed. Then I wrote about the fish, she preparing salmon with a smile on her face, when before she couldn't even smell it. The way he folded Noah's clothes also changed. Aris made rolls to fit everything in the drawer. This new woman folded as if she were tidying up a store window. The other day, I heard her humming in the hallway. It was a lullaby that I used to sing to my son. Brian, now down. Another show when he's stupid out. When he was little, his statue down. Aris said he didn't know this song, but now knew I. She knew the whole melody. There was one day in particular that was marked. Noah was crying in his room because he had had a nightmare. I went to help, as I always do, but arrived first. She knelt by the bed, alone until I tried to console, but it seemed, cold. I didn't know what to say. She kept smoothing the sheet while looking around, almost calm, as if looking for an instruction manual. When he left, Noah looked at me with teary eyes and whispered, "Mommy's different, Grandma. She doesn't know my music." That hurt more than anything. The nights became my accomplices. I waited for everyone to sleep to go to the living room, get the old albums, and compare. Smile, wow, look, posture. I would see the pictures of Aris holding Noah when he was born, of her in the garden with Brian, and compare it to the woman who now walked by my house. It was the same, but it wasn't. Oh. The smile was more restrained, the gaze less luminous. Her body looked the same, but there was something about the way she occupied the space she delivered, as if I were stepping where I shouldn't, as if each movement was carefully studied. I started asking questions in disguise. I asked about the restaurant she and Brian used to go to. She replied, "The Japanese near the highway." But their favorite was always the Italian downtown. I asked about the name of Noah's pediatrician. She hesitated. "No." She said the doctor with blonde hair. But her name was Emily, and she was a brunette. Every detail of these went into my notebook, like pieces of a puzzle, scattered around, no, but which gradually began to fit into an image that left me sleepless. And in the midst of all this, I had to stay calm. I keep serving coffee, washing the dishes, smiling at the right moments, because if she realized that I was watching, she could close herself off, and I wasn't ready for confrontation yet. He wanted proof. I wanted to understand. And more than anything, I wanted to protect my grandson. So, if you're listening to this story now, I ask you one thing. Leave a like on this video. Subscribe here to the channel. Soon. Washington and welcome. Not out of vanity, not out of numbers, but because I'm here opening my heart, counting everything with the courage that only pain teaches. And I still have a lot to tell you. One day, she walked into Noah's room with a book in her hand. He started reading him a story and got the name of the puppy in his favorite story wrong, said Max. But the name was Toby. Noah corrected her, and she was visibly disconcerted. He tried to laugh. He didn't talk. But I, from the hallway, saw it. Nay, I saw the exact moment when she realized she had slipped. I wrote this down in the notebook as well. And there, I wrote a sentence in large letters for the very first time without a question mark. "That's not Iris." And when I finished writing, my hands were cold. Nisidula assert. Because if that woman wasn't Iris, then who was she? And why was it inside my house? The answer began to emerge the day the neighbors commented on something that left my heart in my throat. On that Friday afternoon, calm, I sat on the porch as I always do, with my mug of tea and my gaze wide among the pine trees across the street. The sun was lower and the air was starting to cool. Autumn here in Phoenix is treacherous, hot during the day and too cold at dusk. It was then that Mrs. Jenkins walked by with her puppy. the same noisy poodle as always. I waved. She reciprocated and came to the fence. The conversation began with the usual trivialities. Dry weather, sore knee, my knee, the new gate to the corner house. But in the middle of the speech, she let out something that made me clench my fist around the cup. Masha, do you know that yesterday I found Iris going to the mail? She greeted me with her left hand. Oh, strange. Whoa, wasn't she right-handed? I froze inside. I smiled with my lips only. Yes, it was. I mumbled. Hey, trying not to look shaken. Yes, I thought it was strange, but who knows? Lion, right? Age makes us confuse things. She laughed, tightened her scarf, and said goodbye, and then I'll get you into town. But I didn't laugh. In my head, oh, the alert sounded louder and louder. It wasn't just me who was watching. 2 days later, wow, I went to the corner market and met Mrs. Clara, an old friend from the neighborhood. I'd said he couched one, and the neighborhood who had known my family since the boys were little. She came in that lively way, striking up a conversation in the fruit aisle. So, this triste, Karen, nice. Is Eris okay? I saw her here twice this week. Can you believe it? Once on Tuesday. With her hair up. Well groomed. Now, high heels. It seemed like going to some event. And yesterday again. Wow. But then I was already in a ponytail, baggy t-shirt. It looked like I had just left the gym. I just found the way curious, because she treated me as if she didn't know me. I froze twice in the same week, with completely different clothes and ways, and more. Pentagon. I see there without recognizing a neighbor over 10 years old. Clara laughed, as if she didn't give it much importance. But I could no longer pretend it was a coincidence. I returned home with the purchases forgotten in the trunk. I sat at the kitchen table, opened the notebook and wrote, Tuesday, numb, high heels, hair up, Liam. Thursday, Moral Akam, one tail, Hudsidilisuad. T-shirt, ponytail, Palman de Staub. I'd buck donation it surfax to be in. Different ways. Neighbors noticed, and there, meow, with the pen still in my hand, I felt a mixture of fear and confirmation. Because it's one thing to doubt our own perception. It's another for the world to start noticing too. Iris' look began to change as well, as if she knew I was watching more than usual. One day, while preparing dinner, she looked over my shoulder and said, Are you okay? She walks a little quietly, I replied with a smile and said it was just tiredness. But inside, my head screamed, because the only thing that tired me, no, it was to remain calm in front of that woman. That night, when everyone was asleep, I opened a box in the back of the closet where I keep my husband's old things. Inside, way down, among the firefighter medals and some letters we exchanged, was a small, dark leather notebook. It was the journal I started when Brian was a baby. In it, now, She reread loose phrases that spoke of how Iris came into our lives. How careful, intense, stubborn she was, always present. Comparing that woman with the one who now lived under the same roof gave me chills, because the one that was here, downtown, it was a copy that slipped in the details, a poorly rehearsed actress, and deep down, what consumed me was thinking, why? Why would anyone do that? Where was the real Iris? Did Brian know something and hide it from me? And Noah? What did he feel in the midst of all this? And it was that same week, while I was folding the clothes in the back room, that I found something lying behind the dresser. A golden earring. It was not a wrist, at least, not that I remembered. And when I took it to her and asked if it was hers, she said, "Oh, I missed that one a long time ago." But there was something in the tone, as if she wasn't sure herself. It was at that moment that my decision formed like a stone inside my chest. I needed to go all the way, and for that, I would have to go where I have never been before, because if even the neighbors were seeing what I saw. So it was time to find out who, in fact, was living inside my house. And why? It was a Saturday morning when everything became even brighter for me, or darker. Perhaps the house was quiet, with that toast smell that I always make for Noah, and a little bit of soap in the air coming from the bathroom. Brian had left early for a downtown meeting, and Eris, or the woman posing as her, was in the backyard, talking on the phone. The voice came low, like whispers in the wind, but the tone was too firm for an ordinary conversation. It was at that moment that Noah entered the kitchen, dragging the blue blanket and with his eyes tight with sleep. I climbed him on the stool near the sink, as I have done since he was 2, and started putting jam on toast. He watched me quietly until he blurted out of nowhere, "Grandma, today Mom sang the boat song just like you sing." I smiled. Very, I thought, surprised. "Oh yes? And did she remember the lyrics right?" He nodded. "I am so hushy still, chewing slowly. Yes, but yesterday she said she didn't know. And yesterday, no." She made a deep voice. Today, her voice was sweet. The plate slipped a little out of my hand. I took a deep breath and continued buttering, to disguise the tremor. "Noah, do you think Mom is different?" He looked at me with that brutal sincerity that only children know how to have. "There are days when she is the mom she used to be. There are days when she is a new mom. Why? But I keep quiet, because she says I'm confusing." His words cut me like a knife, because they're new from the innocent mouth of my grandson. Came the confirmation that no one wanted to give, even him, a 7-year-old child, who barely understands what pretense is. I already noticed the change, and more than that, he was being taught to doubt himself, and at that moment, I realized the weight that was falling on me. I was the only bridge between him and the truth, the only person on that ceiling who could still see what was behind the curtain. Noah's world was being stirred. I shaped by something sick, and if I did nothing, what would be left of his childhood? I stared at him as he licked his fingers with the strawberry jam. So small, I should ought still be upside down. So fragile, so good, meow tile. And a phrase came to my mind, which I now want to share with you who are listening to me. There are stories that we need to listen to until the end, not to understand others, but to remember who we are. And this story, my story, it's still far from over. That afternoon was long. Yeah. Eris returned from the backyard with a tense face, as if he had cried or fought on the phone. I asked if everything was okay, and she said it was just a problem with a work delivery, but his eyes were running away from mine, and his steps seemed to tell another truth. Noah spent the rest of the day quieter. I wondered if he felt guilty for telling me. Children feel it now, even without understanding it. So, loud, how, at night, I made a point of sitting with him, taking my husband's old guitar and singing that little song with him on my lap. He smiled, leaned his head on my shoulder, and whispered, "That's Grandma's song." The new mom sings similarly, loud calm, but not the same. My heart almost stopped. That night, I wrote everything down in my notebook. Noah's words, her behavior, our behavior, details of her face, the tone of voice, and, like a detective who connects the dots. But unlike the detectives in the movies, I had no crew, no DNA track, no help from the police. I only had my memory, my instinct, and my love for that boy. Because at this point, I was already sure of one thing. Whoever was living here, he wasn't just deceiving me. I was molding my grandson. What? That's it. I couldn't allow it. And it was then, on that cold autumn night, with the lamplight on and my heart aching inside my chest, that I made the decision that changed everything. I needed to see it with my own eyes. He needed to find out where the real Arias was. And what I found in her computer inbox. It was the first key, a key that led me to a name I've never heard before, and an address I never imagined I would see. That afternoon, the sky was overcast, a rare thing here. The heat gave a respite, but inside me, everything boiled. I was on the porch, as usual, tending to the plants, when I saw her come out. Miguel, Aris, light blue dress, one of those light cotton, very summery, young, loose hair, accordion, particularly with a charnasiftas, sunglasses, a cloth basket hanging from her arm, the kind she used to go to the market. He greeted me with a quick wave, without even stopping. It was 3 p.m. I remember because I had just programmed the oven for dinner. I watched the way she walked, the quick steps, almost too hurried for someone just going to buy milk and bread. But I let it go, as I have left so many other times. I went back inside, trying to pretend that this day was just like any other. Only you. But he wasn't. When the clock passed 5, I started to find it strange. It was rare for her to take so long. At 5:48 p.m., I heard the gate slam and ran discreetly to the living room curtain. And that's when something cut me inside. Where's Young? She came back wearing another dress, striped, brown, with beige, and a scarf tied around her neck. The basket was still on his arm, but the clothes were different. And the worst, the way of walking too. The stride was heavier, safer, minded and so adjure, or touching kappa, as if I had come back from somewhere else, a place where she was not observed. I waited for her to come in, and only then asked, trying to keep my voice light, "Hey, did you change your dress?" She hesitated for half a second and replied dryly, "The other tore it up." "Is that it?" He didn't even look at me properly. She went up the stairs, hitting her heels. Yes, she was now in heels, but she had left in her flats. There, in the kitchen. How? I took the notebook and wrote, "Departure at 3 p.m. in a blue dress. Return at 5:48 p.m. with striped dress and heels." He said that the other tore it. Dry tone. Ow. Different way. Why? Nursed in sound. I felt that it was no longer just observation. It was an inquiry. The truth is that, at that moment, a part of me said goodbye to the hope of being wrong, because, until then, I still clung to the idea that maybe it was grief affecting me, or old age playing tricks. But no, that day showed me that what I felt was real, that something serious, very serious, was happening inside my house, and I could no longer pretend that it was just an impression. No, there are times in life when we need to accept that what seems crazy, it could be intuition, and that the intuition of an older woman, when it comes from silence, he almost never makes mistakes. If you've ever felt that chill that comes before the truth comes out, comment below with, "Oh, I know how it is," or an "I understand you." Sometimes, just seeing that there are people who have been through the same, we take a deeper breath. That night, I was attentive to every gesture. She served the food in a hurry, didn't want to talk, said she had a headache, and retired early. And there, alone in the kitchen, with the dirty dishes still on the table, I understood that she didn't want me to talk. He didn't want me to ask, because I knew that, on some level, I was getting too close. I took the notebook, sat at the table, and wrote as if I were giving a statement. Something has been exchanged. She or the other. Today, you was not the same woman as yesterday. Same face, same smile. But something was out of place. And she knows, I know. And it was that same morning, unable to sleep, that I decided to look at the trash can on her computer. What I found there, he was not just suspect. It was a passage, a printed email, a name I've never heard, and a signature that I would later recognize, but in a place that would cut my soul. That morning, I got up before the sun. I did everything in silence. I ironed the coffee, made the bed, arranged the bag and put on the thick shawl that I inherited from my mother. I covered my hair with an old cap of my husband's, one of those with a faded brim and the smell of memories, and walked out the back door. His heart beat slowly but firmly. I didn't know exactly what I was looking for, but I knew I couldn't just wait anymore. It was time to see it with my own eyes. I waited for her to leave. She who? I can't say anymore, but I called it Iris for so long that it's hard to unlearn. It was to Pain Sirika. Adstaneshtuakajishal. 27 p.m. Ma. When she walked out the front door in a green blouse and dark jeans, sunglasses on her face and cell phone in her hand. Well, I walked with that confident posture, but now I saw it was all rehearsed. I followed her from afar, in northern Kamsant, through the same blocks I've known for years, turning streets as if not wanting to be noticed. She didn't look back, or if he looked, he didn't see me. She turned onto 14th Street, crossed Roosevelt, and headed toward an alley that not even the maps show. An alley between sheds, with scribbled walls and the smell of old paint. I stood on the corner, protected by a tree, with my eyes glued to that image. And then, why, dance? She stopped before a peeling wooden door. He hit 3 times, as if he knows the rhythm. And someone did. I swear, for everything I have experienced, that what I saw there took me off my feet. The woman who opened the door was her, or rather, he was just like her. Loose hair, no, same height, same face. The two looked at each other naturally. They were not scared. They were not surprised. It was as if that meeting was routine. They spoke for a moment. Did they exchange something small? A bag? An envelope? And then the woman of the house let her in. I stood there, clinging to the tree trunk as if he was going to hold me upright. I was no longer dreaming. I was no longer imagining. There were two women with my daughter-in-law's face, one inside my house, another hidden in an alley. It made me sick that went up from my belly to my throat. I leaned on my knee, took a deep breath. The world seemed crooked. The lines of right and wrong were blurred, like wet ink on old paper. It wasn't just betrayal. It wasn't just a lie. It was a plan. A theater. And until then, was just the silly spectator. I returned home without feeling my feet. I remember that I crossed the street with the traffic light closed. A car honked, and I didn't even realize it. All I could see were the images of that scene playing in my head. Both, one facing the other, while in silence, with a mute agreement between them that I didn't understand. When I joined, Noah was watching cartoons. I lifted him on my lap and hugged him for long seconds. He leaned his little head on my shoulder and asked, "Well, is everything okay, Grandma?" I said, "Yes," but my heart, it was no longer in place. That night, I wrote in the notebook with trembling hands, to Montana City wide Aponesidpan, 27 p.m. Leaving home 3. From destinies. Shatters it top up over. 4 p.m. 2. Door in the alley between 14th and Roosevelt. Second identical woman. Concealed identical woman. Object exchange. The other lives there. I closed the notebook and rested my forehead on it, because, for the first time, I wished I didn't know. No. There are truths that we seek thinking that we will be free, but when they arrive, they break us into silence. And it was there, all, with the dark house and the distant noise of the television in Noah's room, that I understood whatever was going on. It was bigger than I imagined. Oh, and the only question that hammered in my head was, why? Why two women are the same? Why in my house? And what? Merci. My God. Are they hiding? I went back to that alley the next day. I didn't sleep even 2 hours that night. And yet, I woke up before the sun. It was as if something inside me said, no, go. Oh, it puts an end to this doubt. Finish what you started. I grabbed a picture from the living room bookcase, one of those very old ones, taken at Noah's christening. Wow. With the whole family smiling under the fig tree in the backyard. Eris was next to Brian, in a cream dress, hair tied up with golden barrettes. It was her there. No, happened. Was her day of June? Or was it what I believed her to be? I folded the photo carefully, put it in my bag, and, dressed in the same shawl and cap as the day before, at 2:45 p.m. M. Hill. Untamen. I leaned against the same corner of the street, almost glued to the cold wall of an abandoned warehouse, waited, well, and at 3 p.m. Sue, there, naus, amoyer, a sober ein. The alley door opened. Yes, it was her again, or the one who lived there. He went outside for a moment, looking around. What is sitting with yourself? I'm not you, holding a cup. It was at that moment that my body decided to walk. Crossing the street seemed to me an automatic movement. When I saw it, I was in front of her. Aris, I called Liddy. She widened her eyes, as if she had been shocked. He tried to close the door quickly, but my hand was faster. I held on firmly. Before she could react, I heard a voice from inside the house, a deep, masculine voice. Not Antuni Seria, Tarshizielba, saying, Isadora, Nam Tino Beam, let her in, my dear diamond, sick tomatersti, Timatosa was. Isadora, Hanundel, Advance, Unchild. The name hit me like a punch in the stomach. My body trembled. It wasn't Aris. It had never been. It was Isadora. She hesitated. Me? Oh. Then he let go of the doorknob and let me in. The living room was simple, with a worn sofa and poorly pressed curtains. In the corner, the corner, an isomako, a tea tray, and a man sitting in a wheelchair, looking at me as if he was already waiting for me. Do you want to sit down? she asked. No, Fa. I want to know who you are. And why are you living like my daughter-in-law? She looked at the man, then lowered her eyes. He walked to the center of the room, took a deep breath, and said, My name is Isadora. This one Chuck Calm. I didn't want to be one. Am not Iris. I only help when the other cannot. My head spun. What do you mean and the other can't? I asked. No. In a whisper. She didn't answer right away. He took a cushion from the couch and pressed it to his chest. We're not doing anything wrong. Nam, Karen, here Nadiawa. Mrs. Nashon, Thokaniam, Karen, Howes, Eris, asked me, she was the one who asked for it. My heart was beating so hard that it felt like it was going to explode inside my chest. Why? Why? Where is she now? She hesitated. Alone. Then he said, Nasuam, Tom, without looking into my eyes. Paris. So it was true. Eris was on Daniel's flight. He was in France. And this woman, Tom, this Isadora. I was at my house with my grandson, Lace, with my son. She said she needed to travel, things from her work, but he couldn't leave his family without someone. And how? We've known each other for a long time. She trusted me, Mom. He said it would only be for a few days. And you accepted? She nodded slowly. We have an agreement. Foul. That word cut me off. Agreement? You pretend to be her. And she pays you? My voice came out louder than I wanted. She was silent. Wow. I felt a heat rise up the back of my neck. My blood pulsed with indignation, incredulity, pain. You're playing with my grandson. He trusts you. He calls you Mom. I never meant to hurt anyone. Then why did you accept? She looked into my eyes for the first time, and there was sadness there, a deep, ancient sadness, because I owed her that. Sat. My legs no longer held me. I opened the bag, took the picture, held it out to her. This is my family, and you're playing with it? How? She took the picture, looked carefully, Lou, and he murmured, Oh, I know what that means to you. My eyes filled, but I didn't cry. Not there. No, there are times in life when we stop feeling afraid, when the truth imposes itself. While what is left is all we need to do. It was there, in that modest room, in front of that woman with the face of my daughter-in-law, that I understood. I was not going to wait any longer, not even pretending. If this piece of my life can become a mirror or a hug for someone, will it help me to carry it forward? Like and subscribe here to the channel. It makes more difference than you think, because now I had a name, and that name would take me to where the real Aris was. And what I discovered in the following days, there is no easy explanation, because Eris, it wasn't just my daughter-in-law. She was something else, and there was a secret that involved many more people than I imagined. She served me a warm, chamomile tea, like someone trying to calm a beast. But I was no longer a beast. I was just an old woman trying to understand where on the road the world turned upside down. Isadora sat in front of me, with her hands clasped in her lap. Okay, Sigis, wassured I stated, her eyes lowered like a child who knows she did something wrong. The cup trembled a little in my fingers, but my voice didn't. I was firm. For the first time in a long time, I felt that I was where I should be. Kaya, tell me everything, I said. She took a deep breath, adjusted her body in the chair, and started. No, I was born in Yuma, southern Arizona. I never knew who my blood parents were. I was raised by a retired nurse, Donna Nabel. She adopted me when she was old, and when they got sick, she and her husband, I was the one who took care of them. I have always lived with difficulties. I worked at a fair, in a convenience store, down, in a family home. I didn't study much, just the basics, but I never got involved with anything wrong. Mrs. Karen, Katie, never. William I so soon, ni calm, up hutching entry stair, up not. Her voice choked. I just listened. It was at one of these fairs that I met Aris. She was at a craft stall. None. I sold homemade soaps. We looked at each other, and, it was a scare. It was like looking in a mirror. Same height, same birthmark on the shoulder. Even the way he smiled looked the same. She looked me in the eye for the first time since she started. She struck up a conversation. He said that he worked a lot. That sometimes he wanted to rest, but that no one could notice his absence. She said she had a family, a husband, a small son, and a mother-in-law who was very observant. I felt my heart stop for a moment. He offered me money, a lot, for me, enough to buy my father's medicines, who already had his liver failing. She explained to me how to dress, what to say. He taught me the names of the people in the house. He said it was only for a few hours, once or twice a week, sometimes. Not even that. It was just a matter of pretending, smiling, keeping the role. And you accepted? Not at first. I was afraid. But my father got worse. The hospital asked for an expensive medicine that we couldn't afford. She came back, insisted, showed money. No what in to come, not your see. And I accepted mine. Her voice came out weak, almost in a whisper. We never hurt Noah. I took care of him as if he were my nephew. He's an angel. I stuck up. I had to close my eyes for a moment, take a deep breath, because there, in that confession, there was something cruel, and at the same time human. And Brian? I asked. She nodded. I avoided direct contact. Sometimes I said I was tired. I went up to the room. Other times, he wasn't. Arias. She controlled everything. He told him what to do. When he appeared, it was as if she lived in two worlds. One here, one far away, and she never told me why. You never asked? She said it was better for me not to know, and that the less I knew, the safer I would be. No, I was silent. It all sounded like a bad movie script, but it was my life. It was at that moment that a deep thought came to me. Sometimes we think that the greatest pain is the lie itself, but the worst wound comes when the lie is told calmly, with a smile, with affection, as if it were care, not betrayal. If you've ever been through something like this, comment below with a "it's true" or "felt it," just so I know that I am not alone in this kind of pain. Isadora wiped a tear with the back of her hand. I tried to get out of it. You know? No? One day he said he didn't want it anymore, but she appeared crying, saying that she had one more trip. That it was a matter of life and death, that later I would never need to help again. And you helped. She nodded. The last time. It was now. And this much help us now. This trip to Paris. She said it was urgent, that there were too many things to lose. And what did she do there? I I I don't know, but I knew she knew, at least part. And I also knew that there was no point in pressing at that moment. I stood up slowly, adjusted the shawl over my shoulders. Are you going to tell your family? She asked. I will. And you're going to report me? I looked right into her eyes, and he said, "Oh, the end of Bob." And he said, with all the calmness in the world, "I don't know yet." And I left. On the sidewalk, the cold, late afternoon wind hit his face hard. But I was warm inside. For the first time, I saw the whole picture. Near Tom. There were still missing pieces. Yes, but now, yeah, now I knew where to look. And when I got home, there was something in the mailbox. An envelope with no sender. Waiting on a property sender. And within it, a photo of Iris. But she was not alone. And the person next to her, when did so why? He was someone I knew very well. The envelope was beige, unmarked, uncendered. I recognition, unstamped. Someone had put it there by hand. New. Inside, a single photograph. Iris, in a black dress and high heels, in a lobby that I recognized at the time. Terminal B of JFK Airport. Next to her, wow, a man. How tall. Gray, well-fitting, dark blue suit. Cold expression. Aye. The two walked together, as if they were used to each other's company, arms almost touching. There was no explicit affection, but there was intimacy in the silence between them. I knew that kind of silence. I closed the door of the house with a trembling hand and sat in the living room armchair as someone carrying a weight in his lap. I stared at that photo for minutes that I can't count. It was recent, perhaps taken on that same day that Daniel saw her embark. Maybe by someone who knew too much, someone who wanted to tell me, "You need to open your eyes at once." The next day, I returned to Isadora's house. She received me with less fright, but the same look of guilt. I handed over the photo. Do you know this man? She hesitated. No. Then nodded slowly. Charles. I think that's the name. I saw him twice. One. He left her here. When? He was wearing black gloves and sunglasses, even in the sun. How? The other. She got out of his car with an envelope. What was in the envelope? I don't know. She just said it was her thing. That I didn't know. Did you see anything else? Any conversation? How? A clue? Oh. Anything? She lowered her head and seemed to search through her memories. There was a day. Once. No. She forgot her cell phone on the couch. A notification rang and, unintentionally, I saw a message. It was his. Charles. He said, "Nice. I can't stand this suburban life anymore. When everything is in my name, we disappear." My heart jumped. In her name? That's what I read. The image of my son Brian came to me like a thunderbolt. That tired look, the architectural projects he drew until late, the faith he had in that woman. I got up, squinted my eyes to contain the nausea that rose. You understand what she's doing, don't you? Isadora looked at me with tears forming. I didn't know. Now, interest. She is not only deceiving my son, she is planning to take everything from him. What in on Isadora broke down in a silent cry. I just grabbed my notebook from my bag and wrote it all down, with a steady hand. Charles, Megan, JFK, message about everything in my name. They plan to disappear. The war not so cow. Then I went to my closet. I picked up a box that hadn't opened in years. Inside, among my husband's papers, I found the number of a lawyer he trusted. The same one who took care of the inventory when he passed away. It was not just another suspicion. Now, it was a matter of protecting what could still be saved. But first, I sat on the bed with the photo in my hands and let a tear flow. Because there are things that we don't forget. And this image of the woman I had welcomed for years, walking alongside another man, cold, safe, towards a plan that destroyed my family. This image marked me. You know, there are memories that stick to us like the smell of stored clothes. They come back out of nowhere, in a silence that weighs more than any noise. If you've ever experienced something like this, or heard a similar story, leave it here in the comments. Tell me. It can be with a simple phrase, such as, "I've seen that," "I felt it too," or just "it marked me." Sometimes sharing a piece of memory with someone helps to carry. I looked at the photograph again, and at that moment, I made a promise to myself. As long as I breathe, she wouldn't destroy anything else. Not even my son. No, neither did my grandson. Not even my peace. Because Eris, or whoever she really was more involved than I thought. And that Charles, he was not just a lover. He was part of the plan. And I was about to find out where it all began. I spent 2 days preparing that dinner. Every detail was a piece of my memory, trying to cling to the order of things. I used the tablecloth embroidered by my mother. I took the white crockery with golden details out of the closet, the one that only came out on birthdays or Christmas. I prepared roast chicken with potatoes, rice with almonds, and an apple pie for dessert. I wanted everything to taste like home. That house she tried to mess up inside. I invited Brian, Iris, and Noah as if nothing had happened. Thursday at 7, a family dinner, like in the old days. Ah, they accepted without hesitation. Ah, Daniel arrived from a trip that morning, tired but attentive. Wow. And Isadora, well, this one I called carefully. I asked him to come 10 minutes after the appointed time. I asked him to wear the same clothes he had on the day of the alley. And I asked, namely, wanted I all, that he not say anything until I asked. At 7 sharp, near everyone was in the room. Noah ran around the kitchen with a superhero towel strapped to his back. Laughing, Brian helped me with the dishes. Aries smiled, perhaps relieved, perhaps deceived by my calmness. Daniel entered shortly after, unshaven, eyes more attentive than usual. I didn't tell him anything until that moment, but all it took was one look from me, and he knew something was going to happen. We sit at the table. The conversation started as usual. Noah told of a new drawing. Brian spoke of a project. Daniel just listened. Oh, and Iris, in that light blue dress she wore so much on Sundays, helped herself to wine with steady hands. She didn't know. Not yet. I waited for everyone to finish the first bite. I looked at the door of the room and said, Isadora, dear, you can come in. The silence fell like a heavy cloth on the table. Brian stopped his fork halfway. Daniel widened his eyes. Iris, oh, Iris lost its color. Now, she turned pale as the dishes on the table. Noah was the first to break his silence. Mommy, I'm saying, why do you have two moms? His heart tightened in his chest. The boy looked now at Eris, now at Isadora, with a curious smile, as if he were in front of a magic trick. Eris swallowed. She tried to smile, but could only move her lips. That's when I said, how, in the most serene voice I could find inside me, Iris, explain to us who this girl is. Brian's fork fell on the plate, making a high-pitched noise. One. Daniel leaned forward, not attentive. Iris looked at me, then at Isadora, then at her son. It came back to me, and he said in a nervous tone, Leaves, is this some kind of joke? Karen, you know you're not. I star upon that so calm. And today, no one will leave this table until the truth comes out. She tried to get up. No, Suga. I've got to get up. Sit down. Daniel said, no. For the first time that night, his voice was low, but with firmness that made Brian recoil in his chair. Ari sat down. Daniel then pulled an envelope from his pocket. It was the passport, the one he picked up on the finger. I saw see around. A very nice to wife. on the flight to Paris. He placed it on the table. Now, gently, gently. It opened to the stamps page. One from the outward journey. One. Another one from the return. All with precise dates. All confirming. She was out of the country the week she pretended to be home. You want to talk now? Or do you wait for us to call a lawyer? He asked. Ari took a deep breath. Then he laughed. A dry, nervous, unfunny laugh. That's ridiculous. I don't know who this woman is. I've never seen it. Isadora lowered her eyes, but before she said anything, I said you wrong. She helped you, Eris. She played the role you asked for. He took care of my grandson. Oh, lied to my son. And do you want to deny even that? You're making things up, she said in a whisper. Then tell me, where were you when Daniel saw you at the gate? In first class? With that man in the blue suit. She froze. You call him Charles, don't you? The name seemed to take her away from her. Aris looked up, fixed on mine. For the first time that night, she seemed really scared. Brian was silent, not knowing whether to look at me. His wife or his son? How? Does he know you want to put everything in his name? That he plans to disappear as soon as he succeeds? She opened her mouth. Oh, you closed? No. He looked at his own plate. She looked at her son, who was now watching her with confused eyes. Mom? Why are you crying? She was. The tears began to flow. Not of guilt. I saw it. It was anger. It was the end of a game she thought she was going to win, quietly. And that's when I said, "You are calm," looking straight at Brian. Wow. Son, there's something you need to know about the house's contracts. Because now I knew. Now what was at risk was not only love. It was our family's heritage. And she had already taken the next step. The silence in that room was thick, like a heavy blanket on a windless night. Eris was still sitting, but her face was no longer the same. He had lost control of the narrative. On the manipulation, the lie, carefully constructed over the years. And when Brian looked at her, not angry, but with a sadness so deep that it seemed to have come from another life, I knew there was no turning back. She took a deep breath, lifted her chin, and began to speak. Her voice choked, but still loaded with venom. This is all your fault, Karen. From the beginning, you never liked me. He always looked at me with suspicion. She always thought I wasn't good enough for her son. Moon, did you out? I thought you were my daughter. Now, I replied, how? She shook her head, crying, but her crying was not that of someone who regrets it. It was that of someone who despairs of losing the advantage. You are all against me. You don't understand what I experienced, what I went through before I met Brian. Then tell me, what is still on Daniel said, his arms crossed. Tell me why you lied. Why did you hire another woman to pretend to be you? Why did you fool Noah? Why did you plan to disappear with my brother's money? She was silent. Well, it was Brian who spoke for the first time since the beginning of the reveal. Aris, the deed to the house is in our joint name. My father's will left me other properties, which you cannot touch. But the joint account, he stopped. You tried to transfer today. Daniel added, oh, taking his cell phone out of his pocket. I spoke to the bank manager. What was left of her mask fell off at that moment. His mouth half open, his eyes wide, wide. She didn't know. I didn't know that we had already gone further. It was then that Isadora, still sitting in a corner, said in a low voice, forgive me. I didn't know about the whole plan. I just wanted to help my sick father. I was used to. Aris turned to her with a cold hatred. You should have stayed in your place. Brian stood up. Nano calm. What is you? He took off his ring carefully, as if disassembling a delicate watch. It's over, Aris. She stood still for a second. No. Then he got up. Leo Nasio picked up his bag and walked to the door. Noah, not understanding anything, ran to her. Molo, Mommy, where are you going? She did not answer. She just ran her hand through his hair and left, without looking back. I went to the grandson. Hugged that little body that trembled. He leaned his face against my shoulder and whispered, do you have two moms? Grandma? Now, there's only one. My love, Misu, and she is here with you. The door closed with a soft click. There were no screams, nor scandal, only the truth. Finally, sitting at the table, Leo, and the cut, made with surgical precision. My love, Irokal. But what came after that night? It was even more unexpected. Wow. Because not everything had been told yet. And Riss passed. He kept something that none of us imagined. The next day dawned quieter than usual. Why? It wasn't that good silence on Sunday. When we only hear the bird and the clock on the wall, marking the hours. It was another kind of silence. What remains after a truth that there is no way back. The house seemed to breathe differently. As if she herself had understood that something heavy had come out, and now everything needed to be reorganized. Brian left early. He said he was going to walk a little. He said nothing else. I just nodded my head and gave him the space a man needs when something inside him breaks. Daniel stayed longer. He washed the dishes for the previous night's dinner, arranged the cushions in the living room, and when I asked him why he was doing that, he replied, to distract your mind. Mom, and because I think that now we have to rebuild from scratch. Isadora woke up early. She made coffee, sorted Noah's clothes for school, and sat with him at the table, helping with the crossword puzzles of duty. It was as if she was trying, with delicacy. to glue the pieces that her sister left behind. And the most surprising was Noah. He didn't ask for his mother with the pain I expected. He only said, aloud, "Grandma, is the other mommy coming back?" "No, I'm daddy's sister, or the cat or Greece. My love, love. She went on a trip, my, and now we're the ones who's with you. Okay?" He thought for a moment, then smiled. "Wow, all right, I believe that. Isa teaches me better how to write the cue." He gave me a strong hug, and I held that embrace as if holding a root, because in that boy there was everything that was still worth protecting. In the days that followed, now, the routine gradually returned. But it was a different routine. There were holes in the house, stereo, the sound of Aris' heels, the way she laughed loudly on the phone, even the strong perfume that was in the hallway. Everything disappeared. And so, the curious thing is that, instead of feeling nostalgia, what I felt was relief, like when we take off a shoe that bothers us for years and only notices the discomfort when we step barefoot on the grass. Ryan went back to sleep in the back room. Isadora took the guest one. Daniel went back to work, but he called me every evening, and well, wow, I prayed every night. He asked for peace, not revenge. He asked for direction, not punishment, because what was done was. And now, what mattered was to take care of those who remained. I wrote in my notebook a phrase that came to me while I was watering the plants. The truth fell like a stone. But sometimes, to clear the field, you have to remove the rocks. There are things that we live and keep, but maybe by telling, we help another heart to breathe. Like this video and sign up, and let's make this story reach those who need it. Because what seems only ours, well, sometimes is a mirror for someone. And it was while leafing through that notebook that I noticed an old note, something he had written weeks before. "Now, so Nana, I subtract it, and wonder to see what you got out here." In the middle of the confusion was, in the glove compartment of her car, there is a blue envelope. I had even forgotten that. But at that moment, something told me there's still more. Not catching out. Hatidos. And I was right, because what I found inside that envelope explained what not even Isadora knew. Isadora never promised to stay. Not once. I never said that I was going to take on a role. Oh, nor that I wanted anyone's place. She just was. The day after dinner, let him how about such much so he was stout. She returned with a cornmeal cake that she learned to make from her adoptive mother. She left it on the kitchen table. Said good morning to Noah, washed her own mug and left without making a fuss. The next day, he returned with a dinosaur book. The next, then, we wanted with a pair of colorful socks for the boy. And so, without saying it, she stayed. I kept watching Noon. At first, like someone analyzing a bird perched on the branch, without making noise so as not to scare you. Then, with a kind of admiration that slowly grew inside his chest, Isadora was not perfect, but There was a gentleness in her that did not come from the effort to please. It was a natural way of being. She didn't ask permission to exist. He also did not compete for space. She filled what was empty with respect and presence. Brian took a long time to look at her as something more than a shadow of the past. But one day, entering the room with tired eyes, he saw the two of them, Noah and Isadora, lying on the carpet with the building blocks, and he stared for a few seconds. Quietly, he said nothing, but he did not leave the room. He sat there near and just was like someone who begins to relearn to trust what is light. No, there was a day he'll never forget when Noah, in the middle of lunch, went down, put down his fork and said, "Grandma, no, is my mom drawing?" Everyone looked at him. My Sam, and with his mouth dirty with sauce, explained, "No, because she takes care of me like in the teddy bear cartoon. It is not the same as in the beginning, but it is the one that remained later. That hit me like an embrace from heaven." The boy, with his simplicity, with his simplicity, found words that no adult had ever been able to do. He didn't erase the mother he had, but he created a new image, made of what he was living now. And Nils, wouldn't you? I figured you out. As strange as it may seem, it was there that I felt that we were starting to heal. That house, which had been the scene of mistrust, how now smelled of fresh coffee and the sound of laughter. Nothing forced, nothing exaggerated, only truth, the one that sometimes takes time. But when it arrives, it arranges everything in silence. I know that many people think that justice is screaming, "Scandal, liberty, Besego nada secard, Ashtaka, Ashnabstis, revenge." But look, the greatest justice that exists is the constancy of those who choose to stay, even when they don't need to. And then that's why, if you've made it this far, I'm dreamly stuck and sir. I ask you, stay a little longer, because what I found in that blue envelope, everything changed. And it is now that you will understand why. It was late afternoon when Stephen called me to sit on the porch. The sky was mustard-colored, and the wind brought the smell of orange trees in the backyard. He had that look that his father also did when he needed to say something important, but he was still organizing the words. I waited in silence, as I always did. He scratched his chin, looked at the floor, and said, "Oh, Mom, I don't know if I can love again. At least, not like before. But I think life, sometimes it gives us back a different chance. Smaller, detailed, perhaps more discreet, but more honest." I kept looking at him, feeling that something was coming. And then he took a deep breath and added, "Mama, once so us, a kind down." I wanted to offer Isa a home, not a promise of romantic love now, nor a fairy tale future. Alone, now, a safe place, a new beginning. We are together. Madana Padetwa, Ichinam, or show on Chalkon. But without haste, with truth. I didn't say anything at the time. I just put my hand on his. and I think he understood that it was a yes. That same week, on a simple night, without flowers or rings, Stephen sat with Isadora in the kitchen and told her all this. She cried, "Han," but it wasn't that soap opera cry. It was a calm, national and calm, emotional cry. With his hands clasped on the table. She said she didn't know what she deserved, but that if she had the chance to take care of it, she would. I know that he didn't want a title, no, no, or signed paper, or a renovated room. I just wanted to continue, to be there, and that the rest would be taught by life. There was no party, nay symbol. There was no fanfare, but in that house, for the first time in a long time, I felt a kind of peace that I can't even explain. The kind of peace that comes when chaos settles down and truth finally has a place to lie down. Noah, as always, was the first to translate what everyone felt. One day, while drawing, he turned around and said, "Now everyone is where they should be." And I smiled, because he was right. But fate, he still had one last turn, because a week later, a letter arrived. No sender, no sender. Thick paper, strange handwriting, no, sir. And inside, a message from those we least expected. The woman who ran away. Eris, today I spend more time sitting here, in this armchair by the window. No, went ta. The sun hits lightly in the late afternoon, and the shade of the tree in the backyard dances on the living room wall, as if it were also telling a story. Sometimes I knit, sometimes I just observe. It's not that time has stopped, it's that he has found a gentler rhythm. There in the kitchen, in the kitchen, I hear Noah laughing loudly, singing a little song that he invented himself. Stephen talks to Isadora about the enrollment in the new school, about the uniform, about the snack she sent yesterday, and that he thought was chef's stuff. The two share tasks as if sharing bread. And it's beautiful to see. No, beautiful, because it's simple. It's true. As I listen to these sounds from the house, my mind goes back. It goes back to the pages of my notebook, to those almost whispered notes I made night after night. The dates, the times, the little details that no one saw, but that I saw. Go back to those nights when I cried softly, not wanting to wake anyone, suffocating my chest on the pillow. And I think if I had let the grudge take over, if I had acted with fury, if I had exploded, today I would not have that peace, and maybe not even this family, because the truth was my only shield. And I held her in silence. It was not cowardice, it was out of respect for time, because time, this gentleman with slow step, always knew what to do with each piece out of place. I don't hate Aris. I don't have any more space for that. She made choices, and now she lives with the consequences of them. They say that she's out of the country, that she opened a salon in Europe, that she uses another name. So be it. I don't wish harm. I wish that one day she feels the weight of what she lost. But this is not revenge. It's just time justice. And there's something I have learned in this long life. Some truths hurt like a knife, but free like wind. And it is in this breeze that I breathe now. But that letter, that letter that arrived without a name, without a sender, without perfume, it's still there, stored in the drawer of my dresser. Well, and what I had written on it, it changed everything again, because, near this, even after everything, she still had one more truth to leave, and this time, cannot look on. It was for me. When I opened that nameless letter, written in a handwriting that I would recognize even with my eyes closed, I didn't feel angry. I felt sorry. Iris said that she never had the courage to be herself, who always lived pretending, first to please her mother, then to maintain a marriage, then to sustain the lie that she herself created. He confessed that he chose money, the glitter of an empty promise, and that when he realized it, he had already lost what was real. He said that he didn't ask for forgiveness because he didn't know if he deserved it, but that he wished that one day I would tell Noah the truth in a beautiful way, without venom. So I kept that letter, and yes, I'll tell Noah the truth, not, but in my own way, when the time is right. Today, once, I continue to sit here, in this same chair, but with a lighter heart. Stephen smiled again with his eyes, not just with his mouth. Noah grew up knowing that he was loved. Trust, even when the world around him seemed to fall apart. And Isadora, well, she didn't officially become my daughter-in-law. She became something much rarer. Someone who entered our history without asking for space, but found a place that no one else could occupy. And me, I keep baking cakes, taking care of the plants, and writing everything down in my notebook. But now, I write less about pain and more about starting over. Now, the truth is that, in this life, the one who screams is not always the one who sees the farthest. I was called old, exaggerated, controlling. I cooked for everyone, and I was the last to sit at the table. I gave it a home, and I was left alone in it. But I was also the only one who saw it all. That he felt what no one had the courage to feel. And so I tell you, don't wait for the scream to act. Listen to the silence. It is in him that the truth lives. I didn't tell you all this to make me feel sorry. Well, not even to revolt. I told him because I know that there, on the other side of the screen, there are women like me, silent, my dear Tom, suspicious, tired, surrounded by fake smiles, and not knowing who to trust. If this story served to turn on a little light inside your chest, then it was worth it. Thank you for sticking with me this far, for company, for listening. Your like is like a hug for me, a sign that my story has found an echo. If you can, press that button. And if you want to keep coming back, subscribe to the channel. Here, G. Each video is a coffee with soul. Tell me in the comments which city you are watching. I love to wonder where these hearts that listen to mine come from. And it activates the bell. See? That way you don't lose when the coffee is brewed again. Don't go away yet. Listen to the next real story that will appear on screen. Always remember, each wrinkle tells a story, and each story carries a strength. Watch the next video here on the channel with another incredible story. Well,